Nau mai hoki mai rā e te iwi ki te wahanga o te paraku here. I am absolutely excited because we have our regular caller who is usually having a kōrero to us on the line. Nau mai hoki mai ki te reorirangi o Ngāti Kahungunu. It is awesome to have you back in our whare with us whaia. E te iwi ko Dr. Elizabeth Kerekere in the house today. Kei te pēhea koe.
Oh, kanui te ora. It's wonderful to be here a kanohi.
Yeah, it is. It's been a while, hasn't it?
It really has.
Yeah. However, me ko ke taua ki te kaupapa, let's get into it. What brings you to Heretaunga?
We've got several hui booked, but the main one is tonight. We are meeting with Kohu Pātiki Marae to progress their kaupapa around the renaming or the reinstating of the original name of their awa.
Yep.
Ngaruroro moko tuararo ki rangatira.
Ka pai. And can we please have a bit of an update on that one?
Well, let's see. Firstly, the whānau got together. We did a whole lot of work with members of the community, heaps of organisations. They put a whole lot of letters of support together, did a petition, went to the Geographic Board with a kick-ass application, which they said was one of the best they've had, and then they declined it. And it was unbelievable. We were really confident going in. We had engineers who'd done all this work and contributed to this amazing application. And some of the reasons they gave were that it might confuse people because Ngaruroro is a long awa and this people might not know which part of the awa it was. Emergency services might get confused.
Oh, where?
It was really, really frustrating for everyone who'd done such hard work and felt real aroha for our whānau who were just trying to get on with, upholding the mana of the awa. So, took a deep breath, consolidate again, and interesting, the Māori members of the Geographic Board reached out and had a hui with the whānau and said, look, if you can come up with a name that's not exactly the same as the rest of the awa, but still related to it, then it's likely that it would get through. So the hui tonight is for that, to have a look at it again and say, right, what are some options? And because the whānau at Kohu Pātiki Marae and Operation Pātiki who are leading this work, they're so generous, they're so thoughtful, they've opened it up to the whole community because the community supported them. And so they want that community to be involved in helping choose the name.
Ka pai. I've only ever known it as Ngaruroro. I've never known it as Clive River.
Exactly.
So that's a bit questionable there. However, I do hope that the hui goes well tonight. Now let's move on over to Te Waimanakaku housing. Can you please give me a bit of an update on that and its kōrero?
Kia ora. Again, we had a whānau reach out to us, Te Waimanakaku, which is one of the 4 tribal authorities of Tūhoe. And so we went to Waimana and met with them, and they'd been doing incredible work with their iwi really, but their particular hapu, their marae, to set up housing for their people. And so they helped design the project, which is seeing Māori housing rolling out around the country. They were well on the way. They had people in jobs. They were doing all the processes that whānau needed to get through to get approved for a house. They had hundreds apply because lots of people want to move home, and they said they're going to focus on those who are at home. They went through all the testing and things. They came down to 15 whānau who were going to get their houses first. One of them, Nani Hene Boynton, whose house had burned down, was going to have it. Gemma, with her 9 children needing a whare, meant the ones who were ready to go. They had deposits. They had mortgages approved. They were just relocatables had been chosen and the whenua where they were coming back to. And then the government just stopped all contact with them. And it was to do with an agreement that had been signed. Now, an agreement with the iwi had already been in place for a long time, but they developed these things called engagement protocols, which meant that all these government agencies just suddenly, out of nowhere, stopped talking to Te Waimanakaku. And so their housing project stopped just before the end. All of those people lost their houses. And so they came to us to say, what can we do? And no one else would touch it. No other party would come near it. And we said, sure, we will take this on and says, we'll create a space for you. So we did some planning. They put in an urgent hearing with the Waitangi Tribunal because, of course, this very much breaches Te Tiriti o Waitangi. And we set up a space for them at the Parliament.
Yeah.
So they brought 2 van loads down, heaps of kaumatu and kuia, and some of the people directly affected by this. And we just had tons and tons of media. So not just Māori media, but all mainstream media came along as well to hear the whānau tell their story. And that afternoon, I had the question in the House. The Greens get usually 1 question per day. And so I asked the Minister, what are you doing about this? Are you aware of this? And I named some of the whānau, people who had lost deposits.
Yeah.
And what are you going to do about it? Now, the whānau have been trying to meet with him for ages. So in the House, he finally, after question after question, he says, okay, I'll meet with the whānau. Meanwhile, the whānau are up in the gallery staring at him.
Yes.
And he finally agreed. So that was a win right there, that finally they could actually go and talk to the Minister. Then, 2 days later, the Minister, this is Penny Henare, the Honourable Penny Henare, who's the Minister of Māori Housing, and he said that he would like the information on the deposits so that they can look at how much money has been lost and what they can do about that. So, from our point of view, number 1, refund the whānau who lost their money. Number 2, give them back their houses, reinstate the housing program, let our whānau get on with it.
Wow, that is huge. What a journey that our whānau have been through. Wow. Oh, kaore aku kupu. And now, how do we see that relating to Aotearoa as well?
There's lots of aspects to it. There's the thing about the mana of hapu. It's convenient for the Crown to just deal with the big iwi. We see this in the whole settlement process where they've large natural groupings where they won't deal with small iwi directly. They'll say, let the big iwi, negotiate on behalf of the small ones around them. Now, lots of us, we're married into our neighbouring iwi. Our hapu, we cross over in lots of ways, but those are whakapapa lines, and they will always be so. So it's that mana of hapu. They're the ones that run our marae, our whānau and hapu, not usually the iwi itself. It's a gathering of whānau who are related by blood and direct relationship to that whenua. And so that's the key thing. That's happening around the country where hapu are struggling to have their own voice and make their own decisions on their own whenua. The second thing is about housing. We're in this really awful housing crisis, and lots of whānau would just like to come home if they had somewhere to stay. So when we've got a good system that works, that allows people to do that, let's roll that out. And it's not necessarily about being right beside your marae. Many people want to be that, but that comes with obligations. Yeah. But it's just being home. And sometimes, for our kui and karaua, it's about having a space where their moko can come home for Christmas, can come home on holidays, Absolutely. And that's what cements their connection to home. My father took us out for Gisborne when I was 5, but we went home every holidays. We went home every Christmas to my nan, and that made it home. And so my connection is unbreakable because of that. But when you never have that, I've met Māoris in their 30s and they've never been to their marae. We don't want that for our whānau. We want whānau to connect. So I think that applies everywhere.
Yeah, I totally agree with that one. Now, the local body elections, the closing date is the 8th of October at midday. But people aren't voting, not only Māori, but general as well. How do we get people to vote? And do you think people are just worn out?
I think definitely people are worn out. That combination of all the COVID issues, health worries, making sure you got somewhere warm, dry and safe to be living, all those things just wear people down. And it's so weird with local body elections. We traditionally have much lower turnout, but partly that's because it's a postal ballot. Things arrive in the post, then you fill it out by hand, then you physically post it. In Gisborne, we've got one little post office that's still part of the bank, which is in a pharmacy. And there's just a handful of actual post boxes in this whole city. So it's a mission. It's an absolute mission. Now, you can get your passport, you can do all sorts of things online, and you can't vote. So I think that's a massive, massive barrier. And of course, the minister for local government, Nanaia Mahuta, has been on, and she hadn't received her papers. She never got it in the post. So that's happening around the country.
Yes.
So that's one thing. People can't easily vote. Number two, they're not even getting their papers to vote. But number three, a real big thing is that people don't understand why it's important to take part in it.
Yep.
And it's key. Local government makes so many decisions over people's lives because they're responsible for the infrastructure. People worrying about roads, people worrying about, the criteria for how they can build on their papakainga. It's local council. The Resource Management Act, that's local council. Is all these decisions, and it's key who's on it. The figures are starting to come out now about the levels of voting is so low.
Yes.
And we're finding in Māori Pacific areas very, very low, and Pākehā areas much higher. And so the people who get on council are chosen by them. The great thing and the redeeming thing, I think, is the new Māori wards that are happening around the country. We are guaranteed Māori. And I'm sure that it's similar here, that you've got some incredible candidates that are standing. So please, if you haven't filled out those papers, I think it's too late now to post it. I think today might be the last day you're allowed to post it. Otherwise, go to your council and say, I haven't got my papers or I want to vote. Please vote. Please put some numbers, especially our Māori candidates. I'm sure you've got great whānau out there who are standing. Let's get them onto council.
Yeah, absolutely. I do believe, however, that there is a lack of information around our local politicians. Therefore, what do you suggest that they do in order for the rest of us to get up to date with what they're doing? Half of us don't even know who they are on those billboards out there.
This is true. So sometimes, I think two things. One, about accountability. If you're on a council, you should be letting the people know what you're up to. But then they should be resourced to do that. They're not getting the pay as a councillor that we do as MPs. They don't have staff to look after them and do those things. So council itself needs to have better ways of how it reports back so that it can feature some of its councillors and what they're actually doing. The second thing is around candidates and having support. The Greens believe that candidates in general and local bodies should be given a budget to be able to properly campaign and then also limit the budget, because again, if you're already well off and you've got access, you can do tons of advertising. You can put your face in the paper. You can have more billboards and more places, and it makes a big difference having that money. They can do leaflets. I know in our local body, we had one person an older Pākehā man who did leaflets that arrived in our letterbox, because that's expensive to do stuff like that. And so unless you've got the money and the support for people to drop them in the letterboxes as well, then you just can't get that exposure. But also you've got to be good at social media.
Yep.
That's the way to contact lots and lots of people. And if you're not good at that, then again, you're not going to be heard and not seen. So that's the thing. I think some of our younger candidates can teach older people a lot about how to get their name out there and what they think out there.
Yeah, for sure. Now, we spoke about the importance of voting. If we can please draw some reasons more closer to home so the average person can relate, and hopefully we can push them towards that council to get voting, please.
Okay, so for local body, a big thing I know here in Heretaunga is water. What's coming out with 3 waters, how you pay for the water that comes out of your tap, the quality of it, that is all your local council. The use of your whenua, and how you, if you have access to Māori land and or having a say in things that council's doing in terms of roading, in terms of how things are built here, that's all council. There's so many things that council's responsible for in our day-to-day lives that we kind of don't even notice. The roads. Last night we had a hui about climate change and what that means, and people were saying, what about the roads? Are we going to turn things into big highways? Are we going to fix the potholes? All that infrastructure stuff, that's your local council. And it's the difference between having a big giant road in one place or fixing all the roads in all the places. And when you've got rural areas, they've got different issues. Transport, local, buses, trains, all of those things are determined very much by your local council, how you get around.
Yeah. Rawe, whae mihi atu ana ki a koe mō ngā kōrero. Thank you for your kōrero around our kaupapa Tōranga Pū and for coming into the studio. We have one more kaupapa to cover, which I'm excited about. Ka whakatā poto mo tēnei wā.
Ka
Ka waira e te iwi, nau mai hoki mai ki te wahanga o te parakuihi, anei rei kōrero ana mo te kaupapa tuarua. E ki ana te kōrero ko te moko kauai. And yes, we still have our beautiful guest, Dr. Elizabeth Kerekere. Now, e te tākuta, can you please tell me a bit about your moko journey and the steps towards revealing her?
Oh, kia ora. I love that kōrero, revealing her. That's what it absolutely felt like. When I was young, I got a taumoko of, it was a reference to a manaia, a protective figure, and the taumoko went from my head down my neck, and so because of that, because I was so brought up now, head is tapu, I went home and I talked to my nan. She was born in 1903, and I said to her, to talk about it. And so she gave her permission, but at the same time she asked me about getting my moko kauai. And at that stage, it was many years ago now, 30 years ago, and she said, would I get my moko kauai? And I wasn't ready at that stage. And of course there weren't many people, it was mainly Pākehā te tuas that were doing it where they happened. And so, but she gave her permission then, and she said when she was a young girl that she had wanted to get it done, but then she got scared, and it's a decision she regretted for the rest of her life. So she wanted me to get it. And so when I did come to the point where I was really wanting it, and it was a combination of things. I have a Pākehā mother, she's Irish, and she was worried. She thought that it would take me so far into the Māori world that it would take her away from that will take me away from her. So we spent over 3 years talking beforehand for her to get used to the idea. So I knew I had to do it at a time where she could be there and she could see that even though it was something new, actually, it's still part of who I am, who our whānau are. And so we did that on our marae, and we coincided it. We decided to do the unveiling for my father's headstone. My sister and I carved his headstone. Wow. It was 10 years since he'd passed, and just finally resolved lots of things to get it done. You know that thing where sometimes there's issues you deal with that. And so, but they also coincide with my 50th birthday. So that wasn't reason. It was not, I'm turning 50, I'm getting a moko kauai. That was never part. What it was about bringing my whānau together so we could all be part of this together. And it was just me on my marae, so we unveiled my father's headstone in the morning, came home, had the hākari for that, and went directly into my moko kauai. So it was all an absolute tribute to him and to my Māori whakapapa.
Beautiful. That is so emotional. Can we please talk cost and koha? In your opinion, what are some factors to consider when it comes down to koha?
The koha has to be not just what you can afford. It has to be something that recognises the mana of the tāmoko artist and the gift they are giving by drawing into that wairua. And whether you're on your marae, whether you're at your home, whether you're in a public hall, they pull into your own spirituality, and that power and that whakaro joins into what they know to produce our moko kauai. It's a deeply, deeply personal, it's an intimate thing to do, and somebody should be paid properly for that. And if you're going to get your moko kauai, save up. Save up. Don't go, I can afford $100 this week. That's not acceptable. It's a slap in the face to the huge gift that a tāmoko gives us by being able to reveal these moko kauai for us. So save up. And the thing we did was, because the tāmoko's wife was an old friend of mine, I had a quiet word to her about the kind of range that we were looking at. Because I said, I was thinking about this much. And then she said, yep, that's appropriate. And then I upped it a little bit because, we did save up. We saved up for all of it to pay for my father's unveiling, to pay for the kai. This was an item. And we should never, ever expect our tāmoko to give us this for free. This is their living. And so, yes, plan for that.
Okay. So how much do you think is an acceptable amount?
This is a tough one again. I would say my moko kauai took, because I got my lips fully done, this is the other thing. If you're just having your chin done,
Yep.
that's different to working on the lips. The lips take their next level.
Yeah.
And so, no, it only took 35, 40 minutes to do my chin, but it took another nearly 2.5 hours to do my lips. So again, it's the time that it took. So that is a factor. So I think in the end, no, it was a few $100 because it acknowledged the time and that extra effort.
Ka pai. Yeah. And what is moko kanohi to you?
For me, it was a way of gaining additional strength. I've always been brought up to be guided by our ancestors. I've always been brought up that they come to me in my dreams. When I need advice, I can ask them. They reply. And so the moko kauai was a way of, even in the process of it, is feeling the pain of our ancestors, that we connect with them in a different way. And I know getting it done, it hurt. It hurt anyone who's had this. And as you know now, with the work on your lips, it is a next level of pain. And for me, then I offered that pain back to my tupuna because they guide me in everything I do. And to feel the pain that they've gone through. And then I feel that each time we reclaim a part of our culture, more and more of our wahine claim moko kauai, we're healing the harm that was done to our ancestors.
Kia ora. Kia ora, why do you think it has become more popular today than ever before?
I think those ones who started and worked consciously on the revival, all that effort is starting to pay off. It's becoming normal. At home, so many of our women and girls have got moko kauai. It's the question is, when are you getting yours? And so that's what we say to each other. When are you getting your moko? And so that's what I would love. Until we get to a generation of girls that are just saying, okay, yep, we're back to our 15, 16-year-olds getting their moko kauai, where it's a normal thing. In the same way, it should be normal that all of our children grow up speaking te reo Māori.
Kia ora. Our producer Rick, who is of Kotimana descent, would love to know how your moko was designed, and was there a wānanga conversation held beforehand with the artists?
Definitely met beforehand to talk about it. We have the conversation, is this the appropriate person to do? Is there any reason why you shouldn't get it? And one of the things, traditionally especially, and even now, is the taumoko artist usually has a signature design. And so whoever they do has that similar design, and very much focused on what we call customary, a contemporary version of what was traditional. I sat down with him and he drew out for me the design that he normally does. And I said that I'm a very, very different person. I believe I have a singular role to play in the world, and that I wanted him to think outside the square. And I showed him the designs of two of my kuia who were the last ones to hold moko kauai on two sides of my whānau. And one of them was very, very simple, very beautiful, just lines coming down from her lips down her chin. And then my much more hine raka kao, my tupuna from Te Poho Rawiri Marae in Gisborne, and she had much more complicated and, what you'd look at and know as a standard moko kauai. So I said I wanted something in between. I wanted something simple. I'm very fair. So I wanted a design that wouldn't be too blocky, so I'm an artist as well. I'm the aesthetics, all about the aesthetics. So we had quite a conversation, and I also, I drew some things, and we just had a talk, and I said, I'll leave it with you, because that's also the mana. We do not get to tell our taumoko artists what we do. We tell the story, they create, and that's their gift. So what was incredible is on the day, we got as I said, my sister and I carved my father's headstone. We opened that, we did the moko kauai, and this moko kauai matched the headstone.
Oh, wow.
That is pure wairua, that is pure our atua, our tupuna work.
Beautiful.
And It was incredible.
Beautiful. Pātai whakamutunga, what is your advice to other wahine tāne prior to receiving their moko?
I think it's really important for you to know why you're doing it. You will get stared at for the rest of your life. With this, people will have expectations of you. They think that you can speak Māori. They think, especially for women, people assume I have a particular spiritual role in my whānau. On one level, I do, as I think most of us do. But there'll be expectations on you because you carry a moko kauwai. So you need to, I don't believe there's a thing like you have to be a certain age, you have to speak Māori. This is our birthright. We all have, we should at least know what the story is behind it. We should know enough about our culture to be explaining what it means. We will be asked questions of it for the rest of our lives. And I want the last thing, if we've got time, the name of this moko, this design is Waiwai Pākura. Pākura is the ancient name for pukeko. And there's because I'm a weaver and artist, my father was a carver, but there's a particular carving name, and that particular word is the name of both a carving and weaving design. And you know, on the rafters of the house, got the kōwhaiwhai, they're the long ones, but there's the little side bits where there's always 3 pieces of weaving, and they go one direction but the other. Those are Waiwai Pākura. Those are the footsteps of the pukeko. That's the old name for that design. Nowadays we call it takitoru, 3 lines.
Wow, yeah.
But that's the old word. And it's about holding space. It's about keeping things tight. And I feel like that, I aspire to, that's what I do in the world. I create space, I hold space for people, whether it's takatapui, whether it's young people, until they can hold it themselves, and then I move it out. And I try to do that in Parliament. I try to do that in my life.
Kia ora, mihi atu ana ki a koe whaia. Thank you so much for sharing your beautiful story around moko kauwai with me this morning. It was absolutely emotional, and I'm so glad that you are in our presence. Ngā mihi nui.